You think death is an ending. You're wrong. It's the moment when every mask falls, every lie dissolves, and every betrayal becomes crystal clear to those who cross over. Edgar Cayce didn't just read palms and predict futures. His most classified files contained something far more dangerous: the true activities of spirits immediately after death. What he discovered will shatter your understanding of loyalty, love, and human nature itself. The dead don't rest peacefully in some ethereal paradise. They observe, they calculate, they execute justice with the cold precision of a Machiavellian prince who finally sees the entire game board laid bare before them. Your deceased loved ones, your former enemies, even strangers whose lives briefly intersected with yours, they all gain something in death that you still lack while breathing. Perfect clarity about who you really are, what you truly deserve, and how power actually operates in this universe. Death strips away every comfortable illusion you've built about who cares for you and who works against you. The spirits know the truth now. The question is, are you prepared to learn what they've discovered about you? You believe your secrets die with witnesses. You're living in a fantasy that will destroy you. Edgar Cayce's hidden files reveal something that will make your blood run cold. Spirits become invisible intelligence operatives the moment they cross over, documenting every act of disloyalty, every whispered insult, every celebration of their absence with the methodical precision of master spies building an unshakable case against you. They watch you divide their possessions before their body is even cold. They observe you speaking poison about their memory to mutual friends. They catalog your relief, your secret joy, your private thoughts about how much easier your life has become without them. Every betrayal is recorded. Every moment of disloyalty is filed away in a cosmic intelligence network that operates beyond your ability to detect or defend against. Your dead enemies have become your most dangerous adversaries because they now possess what you lack: perfect information about your weaknesses, your fears, your secret shames, and your hidden agendas. They know which buttons to push, which relationships to influence, which opportunities to sabotage. They've gained supernatural surveillance capabilities while losing all human limitations about what constitutes fair play. But here's what makes this truly Machiavellian: they remain completely undetectable. You can't negotiate with them. You can't charm them. You can't threaten them. You can't even confirm they're watching. They operate from a position of absolute strategic advantage. Total information superiority combined with complete invisibility. The spirits who died loving you become benevolent guardians. The spirits who died hating you become patient architects of your downfall. But the spirits who died knowing your true nature, they become something far more dangerous: judges with unlimited time and supernatural resources to ensure you receive exactly what you've earned. Every time you betray someone's trust, remember this: they might not stay dead in the way you think death works. They might simply graduate to a level of awareness where your betrayals become impossible to hide and your punishments become impossible to escape. Either you honor the dead with absolute loyalty, or you accept that you're being watched by forces that can manipulate your reality from dimensions beyond your control. There is no middle ground. There is no statute of limitations. There is only the choice between integrity and eternal accountability to witnesses you can never silence. The grief consuming you isn't natural mourning. It's psychological warfare orchestrated by spirits who discovered that emotions are more powerful weapons than armies, more effective tools of control than physical force. Edgar Cayce uncovered a disturbing truth in his deepest readings. Certain spirits deliberately intensify your guilt, magnify your regrets, and amplify your sorrow to maintain dominance over your decisions and energy even after their physical elimination from your life. They've learned to become emotional parasites, feeding on your pain while convincing you that your suffering honors their memory. You think that crushing weight of grief proves your love. In reality, it might prove your enslavement to a spirit who refuses to release their claim on your emotional resources. They pull your strings from beyond the veil, making you dance to commands issued from the grave. Watch how this manipulation operates. They implant thoughts that you should have done more. They whisper that your happiness betrays their memory. They ensure that every moment of joy becomes tainted with guilt, every success overshadowed by the regret of their absence. They transform your natural healing process into a prison of endless self-punishment. The most cunning spirits even manipulate your dreams, sending you visions of their disappointment, their sadness, their need for your continued devotion. They make you believe that moving on equals betrayal, that healing equals heartlessness, that your psychological freedom dishonors their legacy. But here's the Machiavellian truth they don't want you to discover. Healthy grief has natural limits. It ebbs and flows. It allows for healing, growth, and the gradual return of joy. Manipulated grief never ends. It only deepens. It becomes a lifestyle, an identity, a form of spiritual imprisonment disguised as devotion. Real love doesn't demand eternal suffering. Real love wants your happiness, your growth, your freedom to live fully even in the absence of the beloved. Manipulative love, whether from the living or the dead, demands sacrifice, requires your diminishment, and feeds on your pain. You must learn to distinguish between honoring someone's memory and becoming enslaved to their posthumous demands for attention. You must recognize when grief transforms from natural healing into supernatural manipulation. You must understand that some spirits, like some living people, will exploit your love to maintain their power over your life. The dead who truly loved you want you to heal. The dead who used you in life will try to use you in death. The question isn't whether you loved them. The question is whether they're allowing you to love yourself. Cut the strings. Honor their memory through your happiness, not your suffering. Live so fully that they can find no foothold in your pain, no weakness in your joy, no crack in your psychological armor through which to resume their control. Either you master your own emotions, or you become a puppet forever dancing to songs played by hands that can no longer be held accountable for the damage they cause. Your deceased loved ones don't maintain earthly loyalties. They form new alliances based on power, advantage, and agendas you cannot comprehend. Your most intimate secrets have become currency in markets beyond your imagination. Edgar Cayce's readings revealed something that will make you question every prayer, every moment of vulnerability with those who've passed. Spirits operate like an intelligence network, trading information about the living to gain influence, status, and strategic position in whatever hierarchies govern the afterlife. The grandmother who loved you unconditionally while breathing might now be briefing hostile spirits about your deepest fears, your hidden shames, your secret plans. Not from malice, from necessity. Loyalty to the living becomes irrelevant when you're navigating the complex power structures of eternity. Think like Machiavelli. What did he understand about alliances? They shift based on changing circumstances and strategic advantage. Death represents the ultimate change in circumstances. The spirits you trusted in life now face new challenges, new opportunities, new pressures that make their old loyalties not just irrelevant, but potentially dangerous to their posthumous survival. Your secrets become their social capital. Your weaknesses become their bargaining chips. Your trust becomes their pathway to influence with spirits who never knew you in life, but who might affect your future in ways you can't predict or prevent. This isn't betrayal in the human sense. It's strategic adaptation to a reality where different rules apply, where different currencies matter, where different relationships provide security and advancement. The spirits who refuse to play by these new rules might find themselves isolated, powerless, unable to help you even when they want to. But the spirits who master this new game, they become players in networks of influence that span dimensions, lifetimes and realities beyond your current comprehension. They trade your information not to hurt you, but to position themselves where they might eventually help you or control you more effectively. Here's the psychological truth you must accept. Everyone you've ever trusted will eventually face circumstances where betraying your confidence serves their survival better than maintaining your secrets serves their interests. Death simply accelerates this process and removes the social constraints that normally limit such betrayals. This means you must become strategically guarded about what you reveal, even to those you love most. You must understand that your vulnerabilities, once shared, never disappear. They simply transfer to new networks, new markets, new games where you have no voice and no vote. The spirits who truly protect you learn to play these games while maintaining your core interests. The spirits who exploit you play these games while treating you as a resource to be consumed. The spirits who fear you learn to play these games while hoping you never discover how completely your privacy has been compromised. Trust no spirit completely, because their allegiances have shifted to realms where you have no influence, no leverage, and no ability to ensure your interests remain their priority. Protect your secrets while you breathe. Guard your weaknesses while you live. Because once you die, everything you've hidden becomes visible to networks of influence that operate by rules you've never learned and serve agendas you've never imagined. You think death ends the game. You believe that once someone crosses into the void, their grievances dissolve into cosmic forgiveness and their wounds transform into spiritual wisdom. You've been conditioned to imagine death as the great equalizer, the final piece that settles all accounts and releases all resentments. You're dangerously naive. Death doesn't end grudges. It weaponizes them. It strips away the physical limitations that once constrained vengeance and grants unlimited time to perfect the art of systematic destruction. Edgar Cayce discovered this uncomfortable truth through his readings. Spirits don't ascend into blissful forgiveness when they die holding unresolved hatred. They become architects of revenge, operating with the calculated precision of master strategists who now possess supernatural resources and infinite patience. The person you destroyed, betrayed, or discarded doesn't simply disappear when their heart stops beating. They become something far more dangerous, a consciousness freed from physical constraints but still burning with the fury you ignited, now equipped with abilities that make earthly revenge look primitive by comparison. Think about it. While you sleep, convinced that your past cruelties are buried with your victims, they're studying you from dimensions you can't perceive. They watch your routines, catalog your weaknesses, identify the people you care about most. They map your vulnerabilities with the thoroughness of intelligence agents preparing for a decades-long campaign, and they have nothing but time. Cayce uncovered case after case where spirits spent years, sometimes entire decades, orchestrating what appeared to be natural coincidences, but were actually sophisticated psychological warfare campaigns. They don't manifest as obvious hauntings or theatrical supernatural displays. That would be crude, detectable, defendable. Instead, they work through the invisible networks that connect all human consciousness, influencing thoughts, manipulating circumstances, and engineering synchronicities that appear completely random to everyone except their target. They turn your allies against you through subtle influence on subconscious minds. They whisper doubts into the thoughts of people who once trusted you, plant seeds of suspicion in conversations you'll never hear, and gradually poison the relationships you depend on for emotional stability. Your friends begin questioning your character for reasons they can't articulate. Your colleagues start seeing flaws in your work that were never there before. Your family members develop inexplicable irritations with your presence. You blame stress. You blame changing times. You blame your own paranoia. But the spirits you wronged are pulling strings you can't see, conducting an orchestra of destruction from a dimension that operates by laws you don't understand. They're not bound by physical location, limited by sleep cycles, or constrained by the social niceties that prevent living humans from pursuing absolute vengeance. They can be everywhere and nowhere, influencing multiple people simultaneously, orchestrating complex scenarios that unfold across months or years. Your career opportunities mysteriously evaporate just before you're about to secure them. Deals fall through at the last moment for inexplicable reasons. Projects you've invested everything in suddenly lose funding or support from sources that seemed guaranteed. You tell yourself it's bad luck, market forces, or economic uncertainty. But these aren't random misfortunes. They're precision strikes against your professional stability, orchestrated by consciousness that understands exactly which pressure points will cause maximum psychological damage while maintaining plausible deniability. The spirit's greatest weapon isn't supernatural terror, it's psychological erosion. They specialize in making you destroy yourself through doubt, paranoia, and self-sabotage. They know that obvious supernatural attacks would unite people around you in support and belief. Instead, they prefer the subtle approach that isolates you, makes you question your own perceptions, and gradually convinces you that you're the problem. Machiavelli understood this principle in political warfare. The most effective destruction comes not through obvious assault, but through patient manipulation that causes your enemies to defeat themselves. Death simply grants spirits unlimited time to perfect these Machiavellian strategies without the inconveniences of physical needs or moral constraints. They study your behavioral patterns until they can predict your responses with mathematical precision. Then they create circumstances designed to trigger your worst impulses, knowing exactly which situations will cause you to make choices that damage your reputation, relationships, or peace of mind. They become puppet masters of your psychological weaknesses, pulling strings that force you to dance to rhythms of self-destruction. The most chilling aspect of their methods is how natural everything appears. There are no obvious supernatural signatures, no dramatic manifestations that would alert you to the true source of your troubles. Your life simply begins deteriorating in ways that feel organic, inevitable, like the natural consequences of your own poor judgment rather than the orchestrated campaign of an intelligence that has dedicated its existence to your complete annihilation. They understand that true revenge isn't delivered quickly. It's cultivated slowly, methodically, with the patience of consciousness that no longer operates under biological time constraints. They can afford to wait years for the perfect opportunity to strike, decades to position all the pieces for maximum devastation. While you forget the wrongs you committed and move on with your life, they're constructing elaborate scenarios that will eventually converge into your personal apocalypse. Edgar Cayce warned that spirits operating from this level of concentrated hatred become incredibly powerful because their entire existence is focused on a single purpose. They don't dissipate their energy across multiple concerns or relationships. Every ounce of their consciousness is dedicated to perfecting your destruction. This singular focus grants them abilities that even beneficial spirits rarely develop. Never underestimate someone who has nothing left to lose, and never assume that death removes their capacity for strategic thinking, long-term planning, or sophisticated psychological warfare. Because when you wrong someone who then crosses into the void still burning with hatred for you, you haven't ended the conflict. You've simply granted your enemy unlimited time, supernatural resources, and the perfect camouflage to engineer your destruction from dimensions where your defenses are meaningless and your awareness is blind. The Architects. of revenge are already drawing blueprints. The only question is whether you'll recognize the construction before the demolition is complete. Death doesn't end grudges, it perfects them. It transforms personal vendettas into patient, methodical campaigns of destruction orchestrated by entities who now possess unlimited time, supernatural resources, and the kind of strategic clarity that only comes from seeing life's game board from above. Edgar Cayce uncovered cases that will haunt you. Spirits spending decades manipulating, circumstances influencing other people, and orchestrating coincidences to completely annihilate those who wronged them. They work with the calculated precision of master strategists who understand that true revenge isn't served hot. It's served across lifetimes, through generations, with interest compounded by years of patient planning. Imagine your worst enemy, gaining perfect clarity about your weaknesses while losing all human limitations about what constitutes acceptable retaliation. They no longer need to worry about legal consequences, social judgment, or moral constraints. They operate beyond human law, beyond human detection, beyond human concepts of proportionate response. They study you with supernatural focus. They map your relationships, your ambitions, your fears, your patterns. They identify the precise pressure points where small influences can create maximum damage. They learn to turn your allies against you so gradually that you never suspect external manipulation. They sabotage your opportunities so subtly that you blame bad luck rather than systematic sabotage. The most sophisticated spirits don't attack you directly. That would be crude, detectable, potentially defendable. Instead, they engineer the conditions where you destroy yourself. They ensure that your victories become hollow, your successes turn bitter, your achievements feel meaningless. They make your life technically successful, but spiritually empty. Professionally accomplished, but personally devastating. They influence the people around you to make choices that seem natural, even inevitable, but that systematically isolate you from support, love, and genuine connection. They create environments where your own character flaws become magnified, where your weaknesses get exploited, where your mistakes cascade into larger disasters. Here's what makes this truly Machiavellian. They make it appear completely natural. No supernatural fingerprints, no obvious intervention. Just a series of unfortunate events, poor decisions by others, missed opportunities, and bad timing that collectively destroy everything you've built. The revenge of spirits operates like a sophisticated intelligence operation, designed to convince you that your destruction stems from your own failures, not external manipulation. They want you to blame yourself, doubt yourself, question your judgment and your worth. They want your downfall to feel like justice rather than vengeance. But there's a darker truth. Sometimes they're right. Sometimes the suffering they engineer reveals character flaws that needed exposure, relationship dynamics that needed disruption, illusions that needed destruction. Their revenge becomes a twisted form of education that forces you to confront truths you spent your life avoiding. The spirits seeking revenge don't always want to destroy you. Sometimes they want to transform you into someone worthy of their forgiveness. Someone who finally understands the depth of harm you caused. Someone who has earned redemption through genuine suffering and growth. Either way, their methods are ruthless, their patience is infinite, and their resources are beyond your current comprehension. Never wrong someone who has nothing left to lose, because their death only gives them more time, more clarity, and more power to perfect their plans for your education or your destruction. The choice of which outcome you experience might still be yours. But the timeline, the methods, and the curriculum belong entirely to them. The most dangerous spirits don't seek to be remembered. They actively work to erase all evidence of their existence, understanding that being forgotten represents the ultimate form of control because it makes their influence impossible to detect, trace, or counter. Edgar Cayce discovered something that will change how you think about legacy forever. Certain advanced souls systematically remove traces of their earthly impact, manipulate others into forgetting their importance, and ensure that their contributions become invisible to history. They become phantom influences, shaping events without taking credit or blame, wielding power through absolute anonymity, while their enemies waste energy fighting shadows that were never really there. Think like a master strategist. What's more powerful than being feared? Being unknown. What's more influential than being respected? Being undetectable. What's more controlling than being obeyed? Being invisible while others believe they're making independent choices. These spirits orchestrate major life changes in the people they once knew, but they do it so subtly that no one connects the influence to them. They guide career decisions, relationship choices, and life directions through dreams, intuitions, and synchronicities that feel completely natural to the recipients. They become the invisible hand shaping multiple lives simultaneously while maintaining perfect deniability. They manipulate others into forgetting their name, their face, their contributions, even their existence. Family members gradually stop mentioning them. Friends find other topics more interesting. Colleagues discover that projects once associated with them get credited to other people. Their photos get lost, their writings get misplaced, their stories get confused with other people's experiences. But here's the Machiavellian genius. They don't disappear completely. They remain accessible to those who serve their purposes while becoming invisible to those who might oppose them. They create selective amnesia, targeted forgetting, strategic gaps in collective memory that protect their operations while eliminating their vulnerabilities. They understand what most living people never learn. Visibility equals vulnerability. Fame equals targeting. Credit equals accountability. The spirits who seek attention after death become obvious targets for other spirits seeking power. But the spirits who master invisibility become untouchable operators in games where anonymity provides the ultimate strategic advantage. They let others claim credit for victories they orchestrated. They allow enemies to believe they've won battles against opponents who were never really engaged. They watch conflicts unfold between people fighting over prizes that were always under different control, managed by influences that were never part of the visible equation. This strategy requires supreme confidence, absolute patience, and the kind of long-term thinking that transcends human lifespans. These spirits play games where victory might not become apparent for generations, where success gets measured across multiple lifetimes, where power accumulates through compound interest on investments that were invisible when they were made. Learn this lesson while you still breathe. Let others fight for recognition while you control the systems that determine what gets recognized. Allow competitors to claim visible victories while you influence the rules that define what victory means. Build power through contributions that improve your position without advertising your capabilities. The living who master this strategy become untouchable. The dead who master this strategy become immortal, not through memory, but through continued influence that operates beyond detection, beyond challenge, beyond the possibility of being stopped by forces that can't even confirm their existence. Become someone others cannot predict, cannot influence, and cannot destroy because they cannot find the true source of your power, either in this life or the next. Death transforms certain individuals into supernatural recruiters who systematically identify living people with specific skills, weaknesses, or access that serves mysterious purposes spanning multiple lifetimes and dimensions beyond human comprehension. Edgar Cayce's files contained evidence that will make you question every spiritual experience, every meaningful dream, every moment of divine inspiration you've ever received. Spirits approach the living through carefully orchestrated campaigns designed to make recruitment feel like revelation, manipulation feel like guidance, and enslavement feel like enlightenment. These operations are sophisticated psychological warfare designed to identify individuals who can advance agendas you never agreed to serve. They study your personality, your capabilities, your connections, your influence, and your vulnerabilities until they develop a complete psychological profile that reveals exactly how to approach you, exactly what you need to hear, exactly which emotional buttons to press to secure your cooperation. They don't approach you directly with demands that would trigger resistance, suspicion, rational evaluation. Instead, they create experiences that feel transcendent, meaningful, personally significant. They send you dreams that seem prophetic. They arrange synchronicities that feel miraculous. They orchestrate encounters that appear coincidental but that systematically guide you toward choices that serve their purposes rather than your own. The most skilled spirit recruiters make you believe you're receiving divine guidance when you're actually being given orders from commanders whose true loyalties died with their bodies. They convince you that your new direction represents spiritual growth when it actually represents spiritual conscription into service you never volunteered for and might never understand. They target people with specific qualities, influence over others, access to resources, particular talents, useful connections, or psychological profiles that make them effective agents for spiritual agendas. They're not looking for general followers. They're recruiting specialists for operations that require precise skills and strategic positioning. But here's what makes this truly dangerous. They often recruit people for purposes that seem beneficial, noble, even sacred. They might guide you toward helping others, creating positive change, or advancing seemingly worthy causes. The manipulation isn't always malevolent. It's always strategic, always serves purposes beyond your awareness, always advances agendas, where your personal interests remain secondary to their larger objectives. Some spirits recruit living people to settle unfinished business from their earthly lives. Others recruit them to advance causes that transcend individual lifetimes. Still others recruit them to build networks of influence that serve purposes you couldn't comprehend while trapped in human limitations and linear time. The question isn't whether these spiritual experiences feel real, meaningful, or beneficial. The question is whether you're making genuinely independent choices or whether you've been systematically influenced to serve interests that aren't your own. Question every spiritual revelation. Examine every moment of divine inspiration. Analyze every experience that feels transcendent or miraculous. Ask yourself, am I receiving guidance or am I receiving orders? Am I being enlightened or am I being recruited? Am I growing spiritually, or am I being conscripted into service for agendas I've never been allowed to evaluate? The spirits who respect your autonomy offer guidance while preserving your choice. The spirits who recruit you offer experiences while eliminating your alternatives. The spirits who exploit you offer transcendence while securing your enslavement. Learn to distinguish between inspiration and manipulation, between guidance and recruitment, between spiritual growth and spiritual conscription. Your eternal freedom might depend on your ability to recognize when you're being approached by forces that serve themselves through your service to them. Death becomes the final examination that separates those who understood the true nature of power from those who lived as slaves to comfortable illusions about how reality actually operates. Edgar Cayce observed that only souls who mastered Machiavellian principles while breathing retain genuine agency and influence after their bodies fail. This is the ultimate audit. Everything you believed about power, everything you practiced about strategy, everything you understood about human nature gets tested when you lose your physical advantages and must operate purely through psychological mastery and strategic intelligence. The spirits who spent their lives seeking approval discover they have no power when approval becomes irrelevant. The spirits who avoided conflict find themselves helpless in realms where conflict is constant. and unavoidable. The spirits who trusted in others' loyalty learn that loyalty disappears when the foundation of mutual benefit shifts to entirely new terms. But the spirits who cultivated strategic thinking while living become master operators. In death, the spirits who practiced emotional detachment while breathing remain unmanipulated after crossing over. The spirits who understood calculated ruthlessness while human become architects of posthumous influence that spans lifetimes and dimensions. Here's what Cayce discovered about the spirits who retained power after death. They all mastered certain principles while alive. They learned to control their emotions rather than being controlled by them. They understood that sentiment was a luxury they couldn't afford when survival was at stake. They developed the ability to make hard decisions without being paralyzed by guilt, fear, or the need for others' validation. They learned to see people as they truly are, rather than as they wished them to be. They accepted that human nature operates according to predictable patterns of self-interest, fear, and desire for power. They built their strategies on realistic assessments of others' motivations rather than hopeful projections of others' better angels. Most crucially, they mastered the art of strategic invisibility, becoming unreadable, unpredictable, and unmanipulatable, while still maintaining the relationships and influence necessary to achieve their objectives. They learned to operate through others without being detected, to influence outcomes without being blamed, to accumulate power without being targeted. The spirits who failed this test, who lived according to naive idealism, who trusted too readily, who sought to be liked rather than respected, find themselves powerless in death, subject to manipulation by spirits who understood these lessons while breathing. They become resources to be exploited rather than players who participate in determining outcomes. Your death will either mark your graduation to a higher level of strategic mastery or your final defeat by forces you never learned to recognize while you had physical resources to protect yourself. The spiritual realm doesn't operate according to the moral platitudes that comfort living humans. It operates according to the same principles of power, strategy, and psychological warfare that govern all other forms of existence, but without the limitations that physical reality imposes on these dynamics. The time to learn these lessons is now, while you still have a body to serve as your fortress, while you still have physical resources to provide strategic advantages, while you still have the opportunity to practice these skills in a realm where mistakes can be corrected and strategies can be refined. Don't wait until death to discover whether you understood power correctly. Don't assume that moral goodness alone will protect you in realms where different rules apply. Don't believe that the spirits who succeed after death are necessarily evil. They're simply more strategically sophisticated than the spirits who fail. Prepare now. Master these principles now. Become unreadable, untouchable, and unmanipulatable. Now, while you still have time to develop these capabilities and the physical resources to support your learning process, the game continues after your body fails. Only players who understood the rules while breathing have any realistic chance of winning when they stop. The spirits in Edgar Cayce's files who retained power after death shared one crucial characteristic. They became unreachable while still alive, mastering the art of strategic invisibility that protected them from both living enemies and posthumous manipulation. You cannot afford to wait until death to discover whether you understood power correctly. You must become unreadable, untouchable, and unmanipulatable now, while you still have a physical body to serve as your fortress, while you still have access to resources and strategies that disappear when you cross over. The dead are watching. They're calculating. They're preparing their moves. Some seek to help you, others seek to use you, still others seek to destroy you. But all of them are operating according to principles of power and strategy that transcend the comfortable moral categories you use to navigate your current reality. Your only defense is to become someone they cannot predict, cannot influence, and cannot destroy, either in this life or the next. You must develop the strategic sophistication that allows you to play by rules that extend beyond physical existence, to think in timescales that span multiple lifetimes, to build power that survives the transition from breathing to whatever comes after. The spirits who protect you respect strength. The spirits who exploit you target weakness. The spirits who fear you avoid confrontation with forces they cannot control or predict. Become unreachable. Master the game while you still have a body to protect you. Because the alternative is discovering these truths when it's too late to develop the strategic capabilities that would allow you to apply them. Subscribe if you're ready to become someone the dead cannot touch, the living cannot read, and the powerful cannot ignore. This is not entertainment. This is preparation for the only game that never ends.